Hi, 3 and 4-year-old leaders. We're preparing for June 30th. This week, we're looking at David anointing. It was anointed. So this is the same David that was the shepherd boy that defeated Goliath. In fact, that's the story we're going to go over today. But before we get there, let's remember where we're coming from. Last week, remember, we talked about Israel's need or want for a king like all the other nations. And so God gave into them and gave them King Saul. But God is not happy with Saul or his leadership, so he tells Samuel, I'm going to provide you with another king. So I need you to go to Bethlehem to meet Jesse, and one of Jesse's sons is going to be the man that I choose for you to be king. Well, when Samuel gets there, he sees that Jesse's oldest son is tall and handsome and probably really strong, and so he's sure that that is who God has chosen to be the king of Israel. But this is what God says to him in 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7. He says, but the Lord said to Samuel, don't judge by his appearance or height, for I have rejected him. The Lord doesn't see things the way you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So we need to remember that as we continue to see the Israelites continue to make decisions that are not the way God is directing them, but also for ourselves. There's so many times that we look at outward things, or we're looking for something that God didn't design for us to look at all as the answer to his big question. In fact, he's using all of this to show people, see, you didn't need this king. You need the one I'm going to provide for you in years to come, and his name is Jesus. You don't need this king. You need me, your one and only God. So we're going to get to see David defeat Goliath. And remember, David was not the one that Samuel thought was the right person, but obviously God chose him because David was a king after God's own heart. God was the one that directed David's steps, even though we're going to see David make some big mistakes in the next few sessions. So today we're going to concentrate on the story with Goliath. Before we get there, your social activity, you're still playing this categories game where you find your match. So you're going to say, everybody wearing a blue shirt, go over here. Everybody wearing a yellow shirt, go over there. Everybody wearing a green shirt, go over here. And obviously, if girls are not wearing shirts or wearing dresses, you can tell them that their dress counts as a shirt. And so what they're trying to do is just like we're seeing in this story today. There are things that define us. There are outward things that define us. But what is God looking for? God is looking at our heart. And our heart is what helps us make our decisions, helps us just be. Like our whole being is directed by the things that God sees in our heart. Then in your small group time, you will have a roll of paper like this. Your roll of paper has already been measured out to the height of Goliath, which was a little over 9 feet tall. What you're going to do is lay out your paper on the floor, and then you're going to let kids take a turn, and you're going to measure kids on your piece of paper. And then you have a little measuring tape and a yardstick that you could measure how tall each kid is based on the marks on your paper. And then you're going to write that on their piece of paper. This paper will go home with them. You might want to put their names on the paper as well. And ultimately, what we want them to see is, first off, would it have really been possible for a little boy David to defeat Goliath if he didn't have God on his side? Probably not. I mean, he could have super strength, but likely it's because God, and we know that because God was directing his steps, because David trusted God because God helped him protect his sheep, that was what helped David defeat Goliath. So we want kids to see from the paper how big Goliath really is. If you want to stack kids on top of each other on the paper, like lay one person at one end, another person in the middle, another person at the end, it's probably going to take 3 or 4 kids to get 9 feet and 9 inches out of so they can be as tall as Goliath. So that might be a neat activity to show them, but also to remember that God can use even us when we're not quite as little, when we're not quite as big as Goliath. God can use us to do his purposes because he's looking at our heart. Your memory verse for this summer series is "No one is like the Lord. You are great, and your name is mighty in power." So your signs for that is no one is like you, Lord. You are great, and your name is mighty in power. Then you can pray with your kids. I think on the leader guide, it says that you have a coloring page. We do not have a coloring page for this week. Each room has extra coloring pages in it if you'd like to use those. Or maybe you can use your big piece of paper and have the kids draw different things on the paper until parents are ready to come pick them up. Thank you for building relationships with kids. We are growing in numbers. Each weekend in children's ministry, we are up about 40 kids on average every weekend, which is putting us between 280 and 300 kids between the first service and the second service at Parkway Victoria. With that being said, we need more hands to help take care of kids. I'm not asking you to give more necessarily. I'm asking you to tell me who you know who we might need to ask to join the team. Where we need the most help right now is people to greet at the front doors. The last few weeks, we've had one person, and I'd love to have 5 or 6 people. It would just help everything if we had more hands all of the time. So we'd like 5 or 6 people at the front doors. We'd like 1 or 2 people at every door, Kid Town, Kid Theater, down the preschool hallway, just to greet and watch and make sure that kids are being safe and that everybody's getting where they need to go. We have several kids that have some custody issues, so having more hands will help manage that as well. And then we also need some check-in people. All of that means that the people we need most right now don't have to be primary teachers. And so I think that most everybody could be our greeters and friendly people. Parkway are friendly people. And so let's see if we can get them to join those teams. And I'm going to continue to ask specific people to join you in the classrooms so that you are getting some relief and able to take vacations when you're ready to do that. Thank you for leading. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.